The notion that Tinubu would resort to threatening tribunal judges in order to secure a favorable judgment or risk causing anarchy sounds unbelievable. Did he truly make such a statement? Numerous Nigerian newspapers reported this story, so let's examine the news source. It originated from the final address of Tinubu's legal team to the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal following their argument on why a 25% requirement is not necessary in Abuja. However, it is worth noting that they eventually conceded that 25% is indeed mandatory in Abuja. Let's delve into the details. Their concluding statement asserted that any interpretation contrary to theirs would lead to absurdity, chaos, anarchy, and a distortion of the legislator's intent. They claimed that our courts have consistently adopted a purposeful approach to interpreting the Constitution. This represents a new approach, indicating their growing desperation. The message they are conveying to the international community is alarming. By indicating that they may disregard a court order if Tinubu is eventually removed from office, they are painting a picture of leaders who do not abide by the law. Such rhetoric resembles the language of a thug. Are lawyers turning into thugs themselves, or are they merely conveying their clients' desires? This direct threat to the tribunal judges is unacceptable, and in reality, no anarchy would erupt if Tinubu were removed from office. Instead, there would likely be widespread jubilation across the country, as witnessed during previous elections. It is an open secret that he did not win the election, making this particular election the only one in recent history where Nigerians are certain that the announced winner did not actually win. In 2015, it was clear that Buhari won the election, albeit with the controversy of underage voters in the north, and the same applied in 2019. However, in the 2023 presidential election, Tinubu did not emerge as the victor. That's precisely why the court will rule against him, and no upheaval will occur as a result. Some of his supporters are already regretting their association with him, and it would not be surprising if they join others in celebrating his removal from office. This is because, in just a few weeks, Tinubu has caused more hardship than Buhari could ever imagine. While it is not wrong to consider the removal or reduction of subsidies, tripling the cost of fuel without considering the plight of workers and business owners is undeniably burdensome. Petrol is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, and even in Western countries, a sudden threefold increase in petrol prices would severely impact their economy. Moreover, the recent allocation of 40 billion naira for luxury SUVs for National Assembly members, while Nigerians are resigning from their jobs due to inadequate salaries to cover transport fares, is an extravagant and wasteful use of funds. Transport fares have tripled since the petrol price hike, and this has had severe effects on Nigerian workers, many of whom have dependents to support and reside in both urban and rural areas. The sudden fuel price increase has caused immense hardship. Nigerian politicians tend to spend extravagantly on frivolous items, but they often fail to create wealth in the first place. Their promise to spend billions on palliatives, distributing 8,000 naira each to 12 million people, raises questions about its impact on the economy. It is likely that over 50% of this money will never reach the intended recipients, and there will be a lack of accountability for these funds. Instead of wasting billions, it would be more prudent to invest in the purchase of dual fuel buses to alleviate transportation costs for workers. These buses could run on compressed natural gas, CNG, which is affordable at around 150 naira per kilogram. Such a move would significantly reduce transportation expenses and create job opportunities in Nigeria, since these buses are manufactured domestically. Salary increases should be directed towards those who need it most, such as military personnel, police, and other security agencies, rather than lavishing more money on National Assembly members who already earn substantial salaries. The solution seems straightforward. So why is it so challenging for politicians to understand? Returning to their own goal after arguing against the 25% requirement in Abuja, they eventually concluded that the term "and" is conjunctive, aligning with the Supreme Court's 2008 ruling. Is it possible that they do not comprehend its meaning? If they agree that the term is indeed conjunctive, It logically follows that whatever applies to the states should also apply to the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. We did not anticipate that they would ultimately agree with something they had previously argued against. Hence, we did not invest much time in reading their entire 42-page final address. Perhaps their lawyers genuinely believe that their interpretation is correct, as their words reflect the thoughts that fill their hearts. Nevertheless, lawyers are inclined to defend their clients, regardless of the circumstances. To understand their desperation, which led them to threaten tribunal judges, let's assess their performance in court thus far, including their final address. How did they counter the relief sought by the petitioners? Let's start with the election itself. The petitioners claimed that INEC's conduct of the presidential election grossly violated the Electoral Act, as well as their own guidelines and regulations. To support this claim, the petitioners submitted numerous INEC-certified true copies of result sheets, amounting to thousands, despite not receiving all the requested documents from INEC. Nonetheless, they provided a substantial number of result sheets to substantiate their case. Additionally, they presented evidence from Amazon Web Services, the host of iRev, which disproved INEC's claim of a glitch in result sheet uploads on Election Day. The evidence demonstrated that there was no glitch, but rather an INEC web administrator intentionally obstructed or altered polling officers' passwords, thereby impeding the upload of presidential election result sheets. The Labour Party supported these documents by presenting 13 witnesses, while the PDP called over 20 witnesses. Now, how did the defendants respond to the evidence presented by the petitioners? What type of documents did they submit to the court to challenge the petitioners' claims? Astonishingly, the defendants only tendered one document in support of their assertion that they deployed patches to resolve the alleged glitch. They argued that they had the right to collect results from anywhere they desired and cited a court judgment that reinforced this right. However, they failed to address the issues raised by the petitioners and did not present any evidence to prove that the manual collation they opted for in the presidential election was conducted correctly. Despite not adhering to the law by uploading results at the polling units, they did not demonstrate that the final results accurately reflected the voters' choices at the polling units. This crucial issue, proven by the petitioners, was left unaddressed by the defendants. They are relying on the notion that the burden of proof lies with the petitioners, but they seem to have forgotten that if someone accuses you and presents evidence to support their claim, you must counter that evidence to have a chance of prevailing. Why should the judges simply believe the defendants when the presented figures indicate otherwise? They cannot merely state that the failure to upload result sheets at the polling units did not impact the final results. The few states where the Labour Party released their results showed significant discrepancies compared to INEC's announced figures. If you were the judge in this case, how would you assess their arguments? Moving on to the disqualification of Tinubu, the petitioners submitted substantial evidence to support their claim that Tinubu's forfeiture of $460,000 to the U.S. authorities was connected to criminal activities involving narcotics. They argued that allowing such an individual, who was once involved in narcotics, to become the president would violate Nigerian laws. How did the defendants counter these allegations and attempt to prove to the court that Tinubu should not be disqualified? They tendered a letter from the U.S. Embassy, hoping to convince the judges that prior to the letter's issuance, the FBI and other U.S. security agencies conducted an investigation and found no evidence of Tinubu committing any crimes in the U.S. Additionally, they argued that the forfeiture was of a civil nature and should not hold Tinubu responsible for the money in his account. In essence, they are stating that despite the forfeiture of narcotics-related funds, Tinubu should not be disqualified. If you were the judge in this case, how would you decide? To provide some context, let's consider an analogy. Suppose a group of individuals stole a car, sold it, and deposited the money into an accomplice's bank account. Whether or not they all participated in stealing the car becomes irrelevant, because possession of stolen property is already a violation of the law. In this particular case, The police have already apprehended the car thieves, and some have even been convicted. During further investigations, the police discovered the money in the bank account. They searched for the account owner, who had fled, but eventually obtained the person's phone number and made contact. During the first call, the person admitted to everything, including knowledge of the imprisoned individuals. However, upon the second call, the person retracted their earlier statements, likely realizing the legal trouble they would face. The authorities decided not to pursue the person and only sought to recover the money. As the judge, how would you approach this situation? Another issue to consider is the certificate forgery allegation. The petitioner submitted evidence obtained from INEC and Chicago State University to support their claim. However, the defendants completely disregarded the issue of forgery and only presented school records from Chicago State University, which do not address the forgery allegations. On what legal basis are the defendants agreeing? If you were the judge in this case, how would you decide? Additionally, the petitioners raised concerns about Shettima's double nomination and sought Tinubu's disqualification on those grounds. The petitioners presented evidence to support their case, while the defendants submitted a Supreme Court judgment. This appears to be the only area where the defendants made a reasonable effort. As a judge in this case, how would you determine the outcome? Lastly, let's consider the 25% requirement in Abuja. The petitioners supported their case by tendering a Supreme Court judgment on the matter, seeking the judge's interpretation of Section 134 of the 1999 Constitution. However, the defendants argued that Abuja is considered a state, citing Section 299 of the Constitution, despite Abuja not being listed among the states in the Constitution. In their closing statements, they threatened the judges against considering sacking Tinubu based on the 25% requirement in Abuja, hinting at potential consequences. It is evident why they have become desperate. They are unable to mount a defense as they initially anticipated. In previous elections, the petitioners would often present their case in court, only to be told by the court that they failed to prove their claims. However, this time is different. The evidence presented is overwhelming, and nothing substantial will occur if Tinubu is removed from office. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos from the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal hearing, and thanks for watching.